What's good, everybody? My name's Alckemy. Welcome to the channel. It is finally time to talk about the Digitakt 2. I've waited a really long time to talk about this, and honestly, the primary reason was because the overbridge took, I think, close to 6 months to come out, and there were a lot of bugs with it. This is finally at a playable state, at a showable state that I think would be worth discussing. I'm going to be answering a lot of questions here in just a minute that I want to, try to inform you all about. I'm not sponsored by them. I paid for this with my own money. I don't have an affiliate link in the description, although that would be nice because these machines are expensive. But yeah, I'm just somebody that is an enthusiast over gear and lots of stuff. So my one advertisement that I do have is check out alchemy.com. I make lots of different sounds, drums, basses, you know, cool sounds kind of like that. And if you like those kinds of sounds, then you can get them at alchemy.com. This pack is called Abyss. It's 20 bucks. Or presets, blah, blah, blah. So let's talk about some questions first. Who is this for? I think that the Digitakt is for people that want to work outside of the DAW and want a sampler. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that because not only is it for somebody that wants a sampler, it's also for somebody that is really akin to doing cool things like sample locking, conditional triggers, and very fast use of, I guess, like step-based sequencing that has really fun features like micro timing and stuff, So if I were to set a kick on here and I go like this, where I go kick, and then I have another one here, I can push it late or push it early. This was the thing that sold me on all the Digitakt stuff, or sorry, on all the Electron stuff, was the sequencing just for that, because I love to make wonky beats and all that, and that was very fast. So yeah, the workflow is incredibly fast. Now, if you're somebody that needs transient detection for slicing and stuff, unfortunately, I guess fortunately, this does have a slice mode on here, but it's only by a grid. This doesn't have any transient detection, so you can't chop a break super easily. And you can do it by hand. Oh, no, you can't. You can't even do it by hand. You have to do it by a grid. So there's that. That's kind of whack. You want an Octatrack for that, which the Octatrack 2 does not have overbridge. So we'll talk more about the frustrations of that in the first place. But yeah, so it does have that. It doesn't have a granular synth, unfortunately. And you can do sound design on here via the new comb filter, and then, of course, like looping a small piece of audio and pitching it and whatever. But this isn't really for sound design. Yes, you can do it, but no, it's not going to give you super versatile results. It's better to make all of your material somewhere else or sample it, if you will, which the sampling features are great. You can resample in here if you want to, which is also a really great feature, which you can also do in things like the MPC. But yeah, if you want to compare it to the MPC, that thing obviously has pads. It's trying to be more so like a fully featured DAW, although it has its own limitations. I used to have one. I still prefer the Electron stuff, even with the new update. And it has limitations, excuse me, in strange places that I think that the Electron makes up for, and then vice versa, right? So one thing with the MPC is that it obviously has the beat slice, transient detection, all that other stuff. It also does have internal resampling and all that, but the sequencing features of it are relatively rigid, and I think that it doesn't have the sample locking. So if I hit a sample right here where I play a kick, and I've got another kick right here, then I can actually change the sample out to where this plays a kick, this plays a snare. I'll talk more about that here in a second. I'm not going to do any technical stuff in here. I'm just going to talk about what it can do, because otherwise it's going to be a tutorial and this video will be way too long. With that being said, there are some other sample warp modes that this has that I would say the other does not, or the other options don't. So in comparison to something like the poly and play, you can repitch things, and you can come up with cool patterns on the fly or whatever. This does have a Euclidean sequencer. If you go here, hit shift and sequencer, and then you've got your Euclidean stuff, which is pretty dope. But the poly and play doesn't really have many options for the sample manipulation. If we go to the sources here, you've got one shot, repitch, stretch, and warp. And I like that they have these different modes here. Again, I just wish that they had a granular and a slice mode that actually was functional, because that would immediately make this thing 50 billion times worth the purchase, more worth the purchase. Because yeah, I feel like these days, why would you not? So yeah, anyway, if you have any more questions about the comparisons behind those other things, then feel free to ask in the comments. If you are looking for something that is a synthesizer, I would recommend the Digitone 2 or the Digitakt. For me, my first purchase for Electron stuff was Analog Heat Plus Effects. It was very expensive, but you know what? I love this box. It can do some really gnarly stuff that is relatively unique in the character that it has. I'm not talking about analog versus digital, whatever. It's just that this has something, it's got its own sound, and it's really cool. Let's talk about some alternatives if you want to have something like this, but more DAW friendly. For one, the Oxy One sequencer is the go-to choice if you are wanting a sequencer that is compatible with your DAW. This is probably the best hardware purchase that I think that I've ever made. It is incredibly versatile. It can work with your phone. It's wireless. It's battery operated. They have regular updates. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the Oxy One. The other thing is if you want a drum sequencer and you have an iPad, then you most likely want Patterning 3. This is $30. If you have an iPad, it most likely can run it. This doesn't have hardly any flexibility with sample manipulation, but the sequencing on here is the best sequencer stuff I've ever used, the most intuitive. It's freaking awesome. Again, this is for people that want stuff outside of the DAW. This is for people that want to maybe do live performances. This is for people that want to, maybe sit at a desk and, be all, yeah, I don't know, what's the word? I can't think of the word, but hipster. Yeah, do people still say that? This is a hipster device. It's a great device, but it's totally a hipster device. Yeah, go for the Digitone if you want sampling, or sorry, if you want synthesis, and there's that. So what does this have that the first one doesn't? Obviously, it's got more tracks, up to 16, either audio or MIDI. It's got more scenes here. You can jump from scene, I believe, or play from a scene that you select, which is nice. And it has a new comb filter. So if you go to the source right here and you tab over, then you can choose behind new filter types over here. I don't even think that you can see that because of the glare. I'm sorry, but you can kind of guess, right? And then the other thing is that it's got, I think it has one more LFO. It has stereo sampling versus the Digitakt one, which is a big thing. It's got larger memory inside of it. And I'm trying to think if it has anything else. I think that's mostly it. But yeah, so for the most part, the way that you go about this is you have these tracks, right? And then what you can do is you select a track, turn the record on, do something like this, step this over, kind of like so, and then you've got like a cool little pattern. So like a, very easy. And then what you do is you make a pattern, then you duplicate the pattern, make a variation to it, duplicate the pattern, make a variation to it, and then you've got the building blocks for your song. And then, of course, you can route this to other stuff, as you can see in the back, via either audio or it has MIDI in and out to control other things. Which I will say as well, this is probably one of the better devices for like external gear and like controlling other stuff. Whereas I know that the MIDI manipulation and all that stuff on the MPC is kind of whack. Coffee break. Cool. So I think that this box is great. The sample selections and stuff could be better. So if I go into my samples, I hit shift, we have a drive or we have the project arm where you can load stuff in, and then you've got folders. You open up the folder. One weird quirk is that you can scroll with the wheel, but this will not trigger a sample unless if you hit this. These are just some basses from, yeah. So, but if you like it, then you can hit yes, 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 and then you can hit to the right, and then you can set where to send this to some banks. And so let's say I have all these bases and I want to send them to a different bank. I can go function, oops, I accidentally hit keyboard setup. But yeah, you hit function yes, and then you can assign them to whatever bank you want, which is A through H, I believe. And then you can, assign it to a track. So if I go 6, maybe 7, I go source, I go to the top thing here. You can see that I've got the sample selections to where I can move this. And you're a G if you can do this with one hand, kind of like this as well. So I don't know, I'm just showing off. And go like that, and then, boom, and then yes. Something that's cool, that's unique about this, like I said before, is that you can set this to different samples based off of your steps. So let's say I go 7 and I go like this. I want something here and I want something here. On this one, you can utilize this if you want to change the preset pool, but you can also do what's called sample locking, where this is one sample and then the next step is a different sample. You can also set it to have different settings. So if you hold this down and you change this to something different, so kind of like so, and we go to this one, when I hold this down and I go C, you'll see that the C is on C20, and then I hold this one down, I can go to this one and go yes. So now you can see that I think that this one in particular is off, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe I can move this to a different one. Go yes. Yeah, and you'll see that this is triggering a different kick. I think the thing with this one, with that 7, is that typically speaking, this is offset, so I don't think that the kick is on the 1, and that's why it's triggering a little bit late. But yeah, then you can do that with everything. So you have parameter locking to where, let's say I want this one to have a filter on it, and we go to the cutoff here. This filter is going to be here, then we go to this one, and this one is going to be high resonance something to where this is now a bandpass. So I hit play, and listen for this. I don't know why that's triggering so late, but you can hear that this one now has the bandpass that's moved over, and that would be your parameter locking. And this is probably the most, like advanced thing that this sequencer in itself can do. And this is what is an advantage over something like the Oxy One, over something like the MPC. I do think that you have that with the Poly and Play Plus, but again, you don't have the sample manipulation and stuff that you do with this. And so because of that, one thing that this also has is dedicated sidechaining. So if you go to the mixer here, you have this master compressor, and you basically set this to where you want this to go. So all of this will go to will chain via one track. So you can't have multiple tracks trigger the sidechain, unfortunately, or trigger the compressor rather. But what you can do is on this, I think that it says comp, you can have this set to track 1. And so what you want to do is that trick that I just said, to where track 1 is going to be both the kick and the snare. So as opposed to just being like, I want a, boom, boom, boom. These samples here on 4 and 5 need to be, your something different. So let's go ahead and walk through that very quickly. So if I go to machine and I go here and I change this out to, that's a snare, I believe. I go here and go to snare. Then when I play this, and so now as you can see, this is all on one track. Even though it's still labeled to the kick, whenever I hit this, this is all playing here. And this is probably the better way to go, because that way, whenever we trigger this and go to the sidechain, everything else around this will be on one channel. That's just if you want to sidechain to the snare as well. Maybe you want to have your, snare be over something or be under the kick, like you're doing techno or house or something. That would make sense. But yeah, there's that. So with that, I think that for the most part, it's a pretty straightforward device. I think that there's also, the chorus now, and then the sample bit reduction. This has really great overdrive, and bit reduction, sample rate reduction, chorus. That's also new. And then we also have, of course, the comb filter, which I think that we already walked through. So if you go here, and you go this way, then you can change in between all these. You've got your legacy stuff. You have an EQ now. You have a multi-mode, which will morph the filter. This is cool for some bass stuff if you've already got like a nice, thick, chunky bass in between. And then you can go here, and then you can loop a sample really tight, send it through a comb filter, and maybe make some metallic sounds and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. I think the excuse me, I think the song edit is also new as well. I don't remember, but yeah, I don't remember what features the Digitakt one had. So now that we've talked about all that, let's go ahead and talk about the DAW integration, which I'm relatively disappointed in because there's just some basic features that really annoy me. Which I understand, like some stuff. Uh, yeah, I understand some stuff about it that makes sense, but it's still kind of frustrating, because we're in 2025 now. So, something with this that I think is the biggest disappointment for me is that I can't go into my files and I can't go drag this in and do that. It doesn't work. You can't do that. You can load, but you can only load samples that are saved within the Digitakt. And so the interactivity or the integration behind this is next to nothing aside from, oh, we can MIDI clock or MIDI sync this. This is still a completely dependent or independent device that you can't, start swapping stuff back and forth and like changing things out. And then you're like, all right, well, what if I just use this as a MIDI thing and then, make this into, like a drum rack or something and then just trigger the MIDI? That's cool, but now like you're getting into a completely different workflow that kind of like changes the whole ethos of what this is about in the first place, right? So there's that. The other thing is that the data transfer behind this stuff is incredibly slow. So, I've got several gigs of stuff on here now and, or several megabytes. I don't remember how much storage is in this, but yeah, I've got a lot of space on this. I think it's like 20 gigs if I'm not mistaken. And, yeah, it's kind of annoying because it takes forever to put stuff on here. I think it took me like a couple of hours to get all the stuff that I wanted to, and I still can't get my whole library on here, which I guess maybe is a blessing in disguise. It puts you into a position to like use only the best stuff, but that's pretty annoying. But yeah, I mean the fact that it took 6 months for the Digitakt 2 to come out with the overbridge thing in the first place is kind of frustrating. And the aspect of not being able to kind of like hot swap samples and stuff and just let it go to the drive or let it go to the project or something like that is a pretty big bummer too, because the integration with this and how all this stuff works, like, yeah, I guess you could do this relatively quickly, but I want to say that even with this, if I'm not mistaken, there's a project sound pool that you can map this stuff to. If I go clear filters, yeah, it looks like it's only the sounds that you've already loaded in here, so you can't really access even the drive. If there might be a way to do it, I don't think that you can, but I think that it's only what you have loaded into your sound library. So, you know what I mean? Like that's a really big hindrance because it would be so much easier to just open this up, go to your drive and just be like, boom, or even here to where it's like a preset, right? The difference between a preset and a sample here, on this is, remember when I was talking about doing the sample locking and stuff? A preset will be all of the features or all of the settings that you have, whether it be filter, effects, whatever, on that particular sample. And so when we talk about the sample locking and stuff, if we jump back over here to the other view, which we'll go to scene, when we talked about doing this stuff here, we go to the source. One thing that you can do very quickly is to go function, yes, sorry, that's the general presets, my bad. Go here, perhaps, there we go, sorry, you have to hit record. Then you can see that you've got some presets that are lined up here to where you can place whatever settings those are. And then you can save that per project or whatever. So that's one thing that I think is kind of cool. It takes a really long time, but if you maybe set up like, I don't know, like a kit or maybe just a group of sounds that that you're going to recall over and over again, then you can save that in your pool. And then of course you can save the presets and blah, blah, blah. So you can use them in other projects and whatnot. So yeah, the biggest disappointment, like I said, I have are just those engines or lack of engines. This really needs a transient slicer. It really needs a granular synth. So that way this would really help this open up more. Why would you pick this behind something like the Octatrack? Well, the Octatrack has at least one of those, which is, for one, it has more effects, but it has the transient detection, which I've had an Octatrack. I sold the Octatrack to get this. This is better in my opinion. The Octatrack is also something that's more for performance. That's the whole reason why it has the slider and all that stuff and the scene jumping and blah, blah, blah. You can do some cool stuff with it, but I think that for beat creation, this was better. If you're more for performance, then go for the Octatrack. The Octatrack does not have overbridge, so you cannot really use it with your computer in a practical way. You can with this technically. I've made quite a few songs with the Digitakt, and the workflow has been the same. And if you have the patience and stuff and the the wherewithal to kind of load something like this up, it can be really fun to be like, yo, I'm gonna throw the Digitakt 2 over this. I'm gonna be working on the side where I'm changing this. I throw the analog heat and I'm twisting the knobs. Cool, I've got a drum groove. Now what I'll do, is something kind of like that. I'll pull this out from Rolling Sampler, kind of something like this, and be like, sick. And then I will cut this up now, and be like, all right, there's my kick. Sorry. There's my snare, whatever. And start doing other stuff with it, That's kind of how I've used this successfully in the past. I've done this with several things, and it seems to have worked out pretty well. So, yeah. All in all, I am disappointed with the Digitakt. I expected more out of it, but I don't think that Electron is ever going to cannibalize their own products, especially since the Octatrack is still selling. I just wish that they would make a device that I don't understand their philosophy. I'll say that much, and I feel confident saying that because, well, I'm not sponsored by them or paid by them or anything, but yeah, I don't understand because it's like you have the capability to do this, and you should do this. This will move more units. The Octatrack has so many other things that you can utilize to help keep it separate from what the Digitakt does, but this is a sample-based groove box that is meant for beat creation in its own right, and if you look at the difference behind what the Digitakt can do versus what the Octatrack can do, it's like they kind of should be the same device anyways, at least in my opinion. The analog rhythm is a good middle ground in between because it has both some synthesis and sampling, but I don't think that it has beat slicing either, if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. Yeah, so I don't mean to end this on a negative note. I do think that this is a great product, but again, if like you're in the market and you're looking for something to use with your DAW, perhaps consider the Oxy one. I do also think that it's a bit cheaper. But yeah, the Oxy one I think is probably the king of MIDI controller sequencers. This is great for for performances and stuff. Also, a lot of people you usually don't just buy one box if you get into Electron. It's just the way that I don't know why, but it's just the way that this seems to work out. So, anyways, those are my recommendations from somebody that has spent some time with it, that's had these boxes for a few years now, a couple years, sorry, and yeah, if you have any other questions, then let me know. And good luck with all of your musical endeavors. Check out alchemy.com if you want to support the channel. Let me know if you want an update review on the heat effects or the Digitakt. And yeah, I'll check you on the next one.